Day 9, Dream Factory. We take captive every thought to make it obedient to Christ. 2 Corinthians 10:5. I have a friend who is out to change the world, one malnourished child at a time. In 2008, Mark Moore was working on Capitol Hill after spending 10 years in Africa as a missionary. That's when a briefing from a UNICEF representative changed the trajectory of his life. The rep shared about a revolutionary food supplement called RUTF, Ready to Use Therapeutic Food, and showed a 60 Minutes clip featuring Anderson Cooper, who called it the most important advance ever to cure and treat malnutrition. For Mark, discovering RUTF was like discovering the cure for cancer. It was more than a good idea. He knew it was a God idea. The primary ingredient in RUTF is peanut paste. Peanuts are high in calories and rich in proteins, which support the immune system. And the combination of vitamins and minerals are easily digestible for those whose stomachs have shrunk because of malnutrition. It's the perfect food, the miracle food. I'm not sure George Washington Carver knew that peanut paste would become the single greatest weapon in the fight against malnutrition, but God knew. And the revelation that saved the agricultural economy of the South 100 years ago has the potential to save millions of lives today. That is the potential of one God idea. That is the byproduct of one prayer. On October 16, 2009, Mark launched MANNA, which stands for Mother Administered Nutritive Aid. But the acronym is really a double entendre. Like the manna that God provided for the Israelites in the wilderness, it's a miracle for those who receive it. After stepping into the Jordan River and launching MANNA, Mark set out to build a facility that could produce mass quantities of RUTF at cheap prices. But he knew God would have to part the waters. He targeted Georgia, since it was the peanut capital of the country, and he identified a town called Fitzgerald. When he shared the vision of MANNA with the mayor said he'd do everything in his power to facilitate and expedite the building permits if Mark could raise $1 million. One trip to Houston and one angel donor took care of the 1 million. And within 2 weeks, they broke ground on a 30,000 square foot facility that can produce up to 18,000 packets of RUTF every hour. Last month, MANNA produced more than 1 million life-saving packets. Dream Factory. Now here's the rest of the story. Not long after this God idea got into his spirit, Mark sent me an email with the subject line, "1 million lives saved at Ebenezer's." That got my attention. Mark explained that the vision for MANNA was conceived at our coffee house, and the official launch, which took place on World Food Day, happened at Ebenezer's as well. So I felt like an accomplice to a holy conspiracy. Then I remembered a prayer that we had prayed many years before, and I connected the dots between that prophetic prayer and its fulfillment. On March 13, 2006, we dedicated Ebenezer's Coffee House to the Lord. We laid hands on the walls, we wrote prayers on the floors, and prayed for every person who would walk through our doors, which would have included Mark. The most memorable moment, however, was when one of our staff members specifically prayed that Ebenezer's would be a dream factory. It was one of those moments when you almost open your eye during prayer to see if it impacted everyone else the same way. It was a specific prayer, a prophetic prayer. This one prayer has been answered hundreds of times since it was first prayed. And Mark is an example of how God can answer one prayer in a way that will affect millions of lives. This is what Mark wrote. The dream of manna was formed in the dream factory of Ebenezer's coffee house. It's great coffee and free Wi-Fi made for the perfect office. As that dream began to gel, and I began to pull together resources and relationships to pursue the dream, Ebenezer's became the meeting place. Meeting after meeting occurred there. Many were planned and scheduled, as in, meet me at Ebenezer's at 2 p.m., but many more happened by accident. Those meetings led to new ideas, new partnerships, new opportunities, and new relationships that eventually brought us to where we are today. Severe acute malnutrition will not be stopped by one organization putting peanut paste in a pouch, but we can launch the greatest attack ever on malnutrition and the needless death it brings. This idea, conceived in Mark's spirit at Ebenezer's coffee house, was more than a good idea. It was a God idea. And when you get a God idea, you need to take it captive. In the words of Paul, take captive every thought to make it obedient to Christ. Growing up, I consistently heard this verse interpreted in negative terms. Take captive sinful thoughts and make them obedient to Christ. And that is half the battle. But if we see only the negative implications and not the positive possibilities, it becomes a half-truth. This verse is not just about capturing sinful thoughts and getting them out of our minds. It's also about capturing creative thoughts and keeping them in our minds. It means stewarding every word, thought, impression, and revelation inspired by the Spirit of God. The first half is taking captive every thought. One of the best ways to capture thoughts is a prayer journal. The second half is making it obedient to Christ, and that requires blood, sweat, and tears. When I was 19 years old, I heard a message about Benaiah, King David's bodyguard, who chased a lion into a pit on a snowy day and killed it. When I listened to that message, a thought fired across my synapses. If I ever write a book, I want to write one about that verse in the Bible. I held captive that thought for 19 years. Then I made it obedient to Christ by setting my alarm very early in the morning, sitting down at my keyboard, and writing a book titled In a Pit with a Lion on a Snowy Day. That book started out as a God idea, but writing it was an act of obedience. Nolan Bushnell, the creator of the Atari video game system, once stated, "Everyone who's ever taken a shower has had an idea. It's the person who gets out of the shower, dries off, and does something about it who makes a difference." Draw the circle. Never underestimate the power of a single prayer.